Our first speaker this morning will be Eleanor Woodward.
We live in a part of one of the world's largest watersheds, the Chesapeake Bay watershed. The issue with this is that we also live in a very commercial, agricultural, and urbanized area. This means that trash, plastic, fertilizers, gasoline, pollutants, vehicle exhausts, and all sorts of harmful substances are deposited into the watershed and ecosystem. Whenever it rains or snows, all of that gets washed into the watershed, into the rivers, and then into the bay. The main issue is that the Chesapeake Bay is the ecological heart of Maryland as well as the East Coast. Not only did it greatly assist with the American win in the Revolutionary War and currently supports the East Coast economy, but it is also home to many species, crabs, mollusks, fish, dolphins, and many more that the ecological web of Maryland and surrounding areas would not be able to function without. When we wash all our refuse into the bay and the area waters that surround it, plastics and pollutants are ingested by animals and absorbed into the roots of plants and trees. Soon, smaller fish are eaten by bigger fish, and bigger fish are eaten by osprey, eagles, herons, and humans. Our little ecosystem is so interconnected that anything that goes into it stays in it for a very, very long time. This problem has only recently been pulled into the light of social consciousness, but the need and desire to fix what we have broken in this way has been noted for thousands of years. Numbers 35 verse 34 tells us to not defile the land in which we live, in which I also dwell, for I the Lord dwell among the Israelites. I choose to interpret this not as that God lives within our community, but that the plants and animals that naturally exist in our world are God's emissaries of flora and fauna. We, as humans, were given the ability and right to cherish and nourish our home and all the beauty that comes with it. We have squandered that chance. Now it's up to us to reclaim that chance, to try and salvage and rebuild what we and the people who have lived in the Chesapeake Bay watershed for generations have slowly but surely destroyed while it is still possible. I am lucky enough to be able to be at the bay very often, and I get to see fish hopping in and out of the water, swans and geese lift their wings, dolphins dance through the waves, and osprey and eagles and herons and foxes all dash along the shoreline, catching fish and enjoying the sunlight. Everything is so beautiful, but I also see the bottle caps lodged under rocks, the decades-old soda bottles that still wash up on our point. I see the signs of the destruction of the very place I go to see beauty. I know that the difference I can make myself is quite minimal. Still, I also know that it takes a determined group of well-intentioned people to impact the majority and be able to slow and reverse the damage that we have already wrought. May have missed our chance to not defile the land in which we live, but we still have time to restore it and make sure that we don't pass a point of no return.
Thank you, Eleanor. Up next, we have Harrison Ertz.
A climate change problem that, in my opinion, is being overlooked is food insecurity. The definition of food insecurity is the state of being without reliable access to a sufficient quantity of affordable, nutritious food. In Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 to 31, God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth." God said, "See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree with its seed and its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw everything he had made, and indeed it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. But how does this relate to climate change? The number of climate change disasters such as extreme heat, droughts, and floods have doubled since the 1990s. The quantity of harvest have been shrinking. The crops are being destroyed by pests, and plant disease has become much harder to predict since they move with the changing climate, and this has never been seen before. Fish are also migrating to different water locations due to water temperature, making it harder for people who rely on fish to sustainably eat. God gave us these food gifts to nourish our bodies, but if we don't act now, up to 183 million people may go hungry due to climate change. This does not even include the 811 million people already going hungry. In my opinion, we should focus on renewable energies and look at the world as one community to coexist and to strive to end this hunger crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Harrison. And up next, we'll hear from Bailey Maxwell.
When it comes to climate change, this is a topic that I discuss several times a week, both at school and at home. I think decisions regarding climate change need to be less political and more focused on science. People in charge of these programs should be experts from across the world to take advantage of the best ideas and strategies. Our government across the world should focus on fossil fuel solutions, taking advantages of energy sources like sunlight and wind, as well as geothermal and nuclear technologies. Individuals need to become advocates for the climate change movement. One voice that doesn't stand out as much as a lot of people that say enough is enough. In my effort to contribute to climate change, I try to turn the lights off when we're not using them, clean up litter when I see it, and actually get on and enjoy the environment that we blessed are to have. Our family goes on hikes in the woods with our dog Whiskey every week, and it is something I always have to look forward to. The decisions we make not only affect the 8 billion people on our planet, but the generations to come. If we're lucky enough to survive as a species over the next thousands of years, that's a lot of people our present day decisions can affect. The younger generation should be more engaged as activists because this affects their future more than the senior generation. If someone like Greta Thunberg can rally the world's attention, then people like me and you can certainly contribute to the case. Damaging the planet that God made is disrespectful to God, but keeping the planet clean and healthy is a way we can glorify God.
Thank you, Bailey. Our next speaker is Alex Strauss.
Yesterday, I went up on a hike up Sugarloaf Mountain with 2 of my friends that I trust I will always be able to have fun with. Now, hiking is gorgeous, especially on the day after it snows, when all of the sunlight refracts off of the crisp white ground and the bare trees sway in the afternoon breeze. And it really makes you respect the natural beauty that has been cared for by God since the dawn of time. And as we were hiking up the steps of the slope of the mountain, the conversation started to come to a close, and we were just walking in the silence of the forest, listening to the forest. And in our own way, I feel like we were meditating, which for me, as a young adult with so much energy and life to go out and do, I don't find much time in my busy schedule to just take a minute and stand back from the world and just embrace all of the beauty that's God's creation. And I truly felt the presence of the Lord among the tree trunks and at the crest of the hill, looking out over the sea of the rolling hills far below us. And seeing how we're right in the midst of the season of climate justice at the moment, I think that this is one of the largest reasons to fight for the habitats and the unimaginable creation that's been gifted to us. The compelling urge, the duty that we have to fight for it. Seeing as we're disciples of the Lord, we have been called to protect the dominion of which God has left to us. We depend on the environments around us for pretty much everything that we need in life. We can open up the ground for raw materials like wood and stone, or we can hike over it in the beauty that is creation. In this day and age, we are in a turning point between saving the world and the natural beauty that's all around us, protecting God's creation and what was bestowed down to us, and letting it all be torn up and thrown aside out of our mind's eye. But as Christians, we know that the future will be built from the idea that was created long ago before us, has a large place in the discussions that we are taking place now. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And our final speaker this morning will be Charles Ertz.
While Jesus may not have said anything directly about environmental stewardship, Christians interested in environmental concerns can turn to passages like the Beatitudes and ask, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus continue to burn fossil fuels? Or would he conserve God's creation by using renewable energy, such as solar, wind, or hydroelectric? To read the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 to 11, and chapter 6, verses 25 to 34, Jesus asks us to have faith in God's wisdom. In this, Jesus describes the characteristics of the ideal follower of Christ and the blessings they will receive, both on earth and in heaven. The Beatitudes are still relevant today as they show the qualities of true love of God's word. For example, Jesus said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." He didn't say, "Blessed are the rich and privileged, theirs is the power to exploit." Jesus tells us not to worry. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or will you drink. Topics addressed are very diverse. The message is clear that Jesus is out to change people, set them free from expected behaviors, separate them from God. People who blindly followed the values of popular culture in those days, just like those in the mainstream society today, worried more about themselves. Are cosmetics and hair products more important than the animals they are tested on? Or are conveniences and cheap fast foods more important than the poverty-stricken farmers who grew it? To those who ignore the self-centered effects on God's creation, Jesus says to be more than birds and the flowers. Live simply, and God will provide. As we think more deeply about how we can heal God's creation, consider Jesus' messages. How can we do that? Go outside to a place where you can feel close to God's creation, or far from environmental exploitation. Take time to breathe deeply, to pray, and to feel solidarity in our neighbors. Consider what Jesus would have done, as it is clear we need to protect what God created. Learn more about renewable energy options, such as solar or wind power. Simple actions can bring us closer to the poor in spirit, instead of the rich and privileged. Thank you.